Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be looking at Chapter 6, which relates to global monetary systems and foreign exchange markets. So basically, we're going to look at how the exchange of money between countries affects global business. The outcomes, in other words, what we'll be looking at in this chapter. After studying this chapter, you should be able to define and explain what foreign exchange rates are, explain or discuss how exchange rates are determined, in other words, be able to forecast exchange rates, discuss the foreign exchange market and how foreign exchange rates are determined. Okay, the majority of this lecture is based on two videos which you need to watch. The first video is currency exchange rates and you, and the second video is exchange rates, macro exchange rates. As per usual, I provided the details on Blackboard, how you can access them, or provided the details how you can access them. In other words, they're on Blackboard, but you can also use the URL that's on the screen over here, or you can search YouTube for the video using the information that I've provided on the slide. Okay, while you are watching the videos, there are 6 questions that I want you to answer, namely the questions on the slide. So guys, importantly, as usual, look at the questions on the slide, write them down, and then answer them while you're watching the videos, and if you need to, go back in the videos in order to answer them effectively. As usual, guys, as I said, answer the questions yourself before you look at the feedback. Okay, let's have a look at the 6 different questions that were posed to you, as these are also questions that you are likely to encounter in the final test or exam. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the actual questions on the slides. So the first question is, why do people buy foreign money? So there are 3 reasons that came out in the second video, i.e. that we buy money in order to trade between countries, because you buy goods from one country in their own currency, but you have to convert your country's currency to that currency before you can purchase them. For example, if I want to buy something from the United States, I pay for it in rands. However, the person in the United States that I'm buying it from wants it in US dollars, so the currency needs to be converted. The second reason is when people travel. So when I travel to a foreign country, I have to use their currency once again. Most countries want you to use their own currency. There are, of course, a few examples like Zimbabwe, where the US dollar is widely used, but most countries have their own currency, and you're expected to use their currency when you are in that country. Not just you expected to use that currency, you have to use that currency in order to buy goods and services in that country. The third reason is for investment. So if I want to invest in another country, I again have to turn my country's currency into that country's currency. They mention two types of investments. So real investments is where I buy a business or I invest in someone else's business, buy part of their business within the country, or I buy property, etc. So real investments are tangible investments in a country, but you also get financial investments. For example, the government issues bonds when they don't have enough money to cover their expenses in the budget, and you buy the country's bonds as an investment, and they pay you back interest on those bonds, etc. However, the first video also mentioned that we all are currency traders, even if we've never been to another country or we've never purchased anything in a foreign currency, but simply by shopping in a supermarket, you buy goods from all over the world that have been traded from other countries. By implication, there have been currency transactions in order to provide those goods for you, firstly in their manufacturing and production, but secondly in the purchase of those goods by wholesalers and supermarkets, etc. So everyone is involved in the purchasing of foreign currency to some extent. Question 2 asks, what is a bilateral exchange rate? A bilateral exchange rate is the amount of money that you will pay in one currency for a unit of another currency. For example, the current exchange rate for a US dollar is approximately 18 Rand 50 for one US dollar, which has changed from about 12 Rand 50 at the beginning of the year. If you swap that round, it basically says, okay, I'll get to that later. Let's just leave it there for now. Okay, so I said that the South African Rand has changed in value against the US dollar. The third question asked what causes the exchange rate for a currency to change. So it's all about supply and demand. So the more that a currency is in demand, the greater the value of that currency. So in the video they used the example of the New Zealand dollar, and if everyone's traveling to New Zealand or buying goods from New Zealand, it will push up the value of the currency. But under the current situation where we've been under lockdown and our economy has slowed down, etc., South Africa has become a less attractive travel destination, or no one wants to come here at the moment, but also people are not buying goods and services or investing in the country, which means that the demand for South African rands has dropped significantly, which means that the value of the South African rand against the US dollar has depreciated, while the demand for US dollars has increased, which has strengthened the US dollar. Okay, what are the impacts of strong and weak currencies, respectively? Okay, so if you have a strong currency, it means that when you import goods, they are cheaper. So let's argue that a barrel of oil costs 50 US dollars. So when our currency was 12 Rand 50 to a US dollar, it meant one barrel of oil cost us approximately 630 Rand. But now the currency is now at 18 Rand 50 to the US dollar. So that means that a barrel of oil costs us about about 950 Rand. So when you have a strong currency, it's good for imports, but when your currency weakens, it makes imports more expensive. Conversely, when you have a weak currency, it makes your goods more attractive to other markets because they are cheaper, and it also makes investments in your country more attractive on a number of levels because they are cheaper for foreign investors. Okay, why would a country want to manipulate the value of its currency? In the video they spoke about China, which aims to keep its currency, the yuan or renminbi, artificially low. Why do they want to do that? Guys, short and sweet, it makes their products cheaper, which makes them more desirable, and thus their industries and grow, and the economy grows at the end of the day. So a country like China, it is in their interest to keep the value of their currency low, and they may influence the markets in order to artificially do this. Now, the question is whether a strong or weak rand would be better for South Africa. You may have argued in either direction, but it's probably somewhere in between. If the rand is too strong, it makes our exports very expensive. So it will discourage foreign buyers from buying our goods and services that come from South Africa. But again, the imports, and we import a lot of oil, etc., would be cheaper. But vice versa, if we have the oil would be more expensive because of a weak rand. But vice versa, if we have a strong rand, our imports are cheaper, but our exports are more expensive. Okay, I'm going to delete part of that answer. Let's just do the whole thing over. Guys, what is better, a strong rand or a weak rand? Okay, firstly, if we have a strong rand, it means that imports are cheaper. So like oil becomes cheaper, that we import a lot of into South Africa. So it reduces the cost of our production and the cost of imported goods. However, when we export goods, it makes them more expensive and less attractive to foreign markets. If we have a weak rand, it makes our own goods more attractive, but because we rely on imports such as oil, it means that our production costs go up because we import a lot of our resources with which we produce goods and services. So it's not necessarily so good that the rand is weak. So probably the answer to that question is that we want the rand to be somewhere in between. Some economists have argued that the rand should be around 10 rand to the dollar, and that would be a comfortable place for the rand to be. Okay, I'm just going to go over some of the points that we've covered already in the videos to some extent. So foreign exchange markets facilitate the international flows of currency. So it's about buying and selling currencies, guys. So it's what one country will pay, or what you'll pay in one country for a unit of another country's currency. So I'm not actually sure what currencies exchange rates are up on the board here, but if you go to any mall, etc., and you go to a Forex shop, you will see that they've got a board up there where they list the price of various currencies: US dollars, Australian dollars, Chinese yuan, New Zealand dollars, whatever. So they give a price that they sell at and a price that they will pay you for your currency, or your units of those currencies. So my foreign exchange market is the buying and selling of foreign currency in order to travel, buy goods and services, or invest in those countries rather. So guys, it's about the transfer of purchasing power from one currency to another currency. So the point is, if I go to America, I need US dollars to buy food, accommodation, etc. So I have to turn my rands into US dollars before I travel to America. But it also has an effect that multinational corporations borrow money in other currencies, and it can have a very powerful effect on their profitability, etc., as the value of those currencies change. So you want to minimize the risk associated with foreign currency. So a powerful example of that bring up here: at the beginning of the year, the rand was approximately 12 Rand 50 to $1 US, and it is now 18 Rand 50 to $1 US. So if I was importing a product at 10 US dollars at the beginning of the year, that product would have cost me 125 Rand, and it will now cost me 185 Rand for exactly the same product, which could make my business bankrupt at the end of the day. An example is a guy who we knew of who was importing shoes for Woolworths, and the Rand had changed so much between when Woolworths had ordered the shoes and when the shoes got off the ship coming back from China, that he would be in fact selling them at a loss to Woolworths by the time they arrived in South Africa with the changing exchange rate. So guys, my foreign exchange rate, it facilitates cross-border exchanges between countries, guys, but as you say, as I've said, these exchange rates vary from time to time. Some concepts, guys. So we've already spoken about foreign exchange. It is the money of another country. So every country has its own currency. An exchange rate, as we said, is the price or value of one currency in terms of another currency. So if you watch the news every evening, they will quote the rand dollar, the rand pound, the rand euro rate, etc. So it quotes the exchange rate as these change over time. So a foreign exchange transaction is agreement between a buyer and a seller that a fixed amount of one currency be delivered for some other currency at a specified date and time. Not rate, specified rate and time rather, yes. Okay, so for instance, I want to go to America, so I order 2,000 US dollars from Rennie's Travel, and they agree to provide me 2,000 US dollars at 18 Rand 50 to the dollar. So I have to pay Rennie's Travel 37,000 Rand for the 2,000 US dollars. Okay. We get two concepts here, a direct quote and an indirect quote. Okay, so direct quote is the home currency price of 1 unit of the foreign currency. So how much I would pay in rands for 1 unit of another currency. For example, I said that we'll pay 18 Rand 50 for $1. That would be the direct quote. The indirect quote is the number of units of the foreign currency needed to buy 1 unit of the home currency. So you would need 5.5 American cents to buy 1 Rand. Bit scary when you look at it. Okay, 2 concepts here. We speak of bid and ask prices. As you noticed on that board earlier, if you go back quickly, look at the board. It's got we sell and we buy. Okay, so the bid price and the asking price, so the bid is what we will buy for and the selling price is what we will sell the currency to you with. So if I go to the agency, they're saying that we will sell you Australian dollars on this board for 1.40 of whatever your currency is, but if you want to buy Australian dollars from us, it will cost you 1.74 of the local currency. The difference between these two is called the spread. Okay, why is there a difference between the two? Guys, because these are called foreign exchange traders. So they've got to build some profit into the transaction, and remember also that the currencies are changing in their value literally from minute to minute in many instances. So it is a way of them creating some profit out of the transaction. So the price that they buy at, they need to sell it at a profit. Vice versa, they will buy it back from you at a lower price than they will sell it to you. So the spread is the difference between buying and selling rates for different currencies, or the profit margin that your currency trader or bank generates from a financial transaction. Okay, we also get 2 types of forex transactions, foreign exchange transactions, guys. You get a spot transaction. So if I go to Rennie's Travel at Tiger Valley now and I go buy myself $1,000 and they will charge me, for example, 18 Rand 50 to the dollar, so I will pay them 18,500 Rand plus an administrative fee. But you also get a situation where you buy currency at today's rate for some time in the future, or for delivery sometime in the future, and that is known as a forward rate transaction. Okay, so the spot rate is completed within 2 business days and it is normally quite a fixed rate. But let's say I don't want to expose my business to dramatic changes within the currency rate, and at the beginning of the year I decide that 12 Rand 50 to the dollar is a rate that I can afford to pay for dollars. You will get currency traders who will say to you, fine, we will give you US dollars at 12 Rand 50 each for delivery, let's say in 6 months' time. I am betting that the currency will have got more expensive, and the currency trader is betting that the currency will have got less expensive. So the currency trader takes on the risk of the change in values. So my forward rate is a price that we agree today, and we pay that price in 6 months' time, irrespective of what the value of the currency has done. So people are speculating on the value of a particular currency. So what determines exchange rates? Guys, so exchange rates, as we said, the value of one currency in relation to another currency. So they determined in relation to a number of factors. Okay, they spoke about the pegged exchange rates in the video, where China's rate is pegged by the government. So they set the exchange rate at a particular level, but that's a inverted commas false level of exchange. In most instances, or most currencies in the world are traded on the open markets. So so I said most instances currencies are traded on the open market, and it's about the supply and demand of the currency. So what I already said, the rand isn't as much supply at the moment, i.e. people aren't traveling to South Africa, people aren't investing, and there's not a huge demand for South African goods, so that has caused the rand to weaken. But other factors include the country's relative inflation rate and their interest rates. So the higher the interest rates of a country, the more attractive that country is for investments. And something also known as market psychology. So what the market believes a currency should be worth at the end of the day, which may sometimes be completely out of line with the so-called market indicators. Now, how do we calculate an exchange rate? So you take the money that you have. So A is the money that you have, B is the exchange rate, and C is the money after the exchange rate. So let's say you've got 1,000 in this example here, you've got 1,500 US dollars. The exchange rate is 76 cents. So for $1 you will get 76 European cents. So 1,500 times 76 European cents. So if you take $1,500, you will get 1,142 euros for that $1,500. So it's money you have in your hand times the exchange rate in the other currency. Your exercise, guys, there's 4 questions. Explain the following concepts: direct and indirect quotes, bid, ask and spread, and then question 3, factors affecting exchange rates. N. Question 4 is a spreadsheet, guys, where I have laid out the South African rand's exchange rate against 6 other currencies as it was on the 1st of January 2020 and again on the 15th of May 2020. For example, the South African rand, one South African rand was worth 6.4 European cents on the 1st of January, and it reduced its value to 5 European cents on the 15th of May. So, and I've provided the table for all of the currencies over there. There's 2 questions. 4.1. Your company produces tackies which sell at a wholesale price of 200 Rand. How much has the change in the Rand exchange rate affected the sales price of its tackies in each of the following countries? So take the value and 200 Rand times whatever, and how much, for example, euros would it have, the tackies have sold for on the 1st of January and on the 15th of May, and do the same for US dollars for America, rupees for India, etc. The second question asks you, your company imports its raw materials from a number of countries. How has a change in exchange rates affected the costs of producing their tackies? Okay, so now you need to calculate how much the soles would have cost at $3 a pair. So on the 1st of January and on the 15th of May respectively, and do the same for each one of those, and then how has it affected the overall cost of the raw materials for a pair of tackies. Okay, same as usual, guys. Work out the answers for yourself. This one especially, if you don't work out the answers for yourself before you look at the feedback, you are going to be lost in action when it gets to the exam. I will provide the feedback to you in a separate video link where I will go over the different calculations, etc. Thank you very much.